afternoon to you all. And I want to start today's webinar on a very personal note and on something which really we all women feel like it happened in the life of every woman or a girl. Sometimes we as a woman, we really owe our life, to thanking to parents, that thank God that they don't kill us and they brought up as a girl. They provide us education. They provide us opportunities to learn, to grow. And then after that, when a woman, she got married and she continued her job, the people said that you should owe your in-laws, your parents, your husband, that they don't stop you to work. Now, with this, I want to say that it happened that though I may sound a bit dramatic, but we as a woman, we often end up, thanking so many people in our life for things that are very basic, very, very basic as our rights, our right to live, our right to education, our right to have a career of our choice. The reason is that a lot of us understand that immediate family and the society at large, they plays a very crucial role in determining the course of our life as a woman. And also what I call here a basic right is still a luxury to a million of girls around the world. I would say that the challenge for us as a girl, as a woman, is most of the world a very, very pronounced challenge, in our life. And it is not a very easy journey for a woman. Whether it is a female feticide, whether it is a domestic violence, it is a sexual assault, forceful marriages, gender-based discrimination, discrimination at workplace, there are. So I think that this topic which we are going to discuss today through this webinar, and this is really very important topic. So on behalf of Law Center 2, I welcome RPIC sir in this webinar, Director sir, and Dr. Tariq sir. And I would like to request RPIC sir to give a welcome address to our eminent speaker for today's webinar. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Kalpana. Honorable distinguished guests, esteemed colleagues, our senior colleagues, Professor Anupam Jhaji, and other senior colleagues, Dr. Kiran Gupta, and including other, senior colleagues and younger colleagues. Dear students, present here for this webinar, very good afternoon, very, very good afternoon to you all. I'm sure that all of you know to the fact that gold has been the standard of exemplary purity and excellence since time immemorial. And I am very happy to be part of this milestone of Law Center 2 for the celebration of its Golden Jubilee. Law Center 2 is celebrating its Golden Jubilee year 2021-22. We have already successfully organized number of programs, events, and activities, and we are on our way to create a road map for the future generations. In continuance of the celebrating 50th Golden Jubilee year of Law Center 2, today we are adding one more event in our Golden Jubilee celebration. Law Center 2 has a long, proud, and distinctive history. It is one of the distinct center of Faculty of Law. University of Delhi, Law Center 2 was founded in the year of 1971 at the premises of ARSD College, Dholakua in the year of 1971 to provide quality education while offering full-time LLB program. Today, Law Center 2 is a Golden Jubilee Center, continues to be a progressive center, and made a strategic commitment to the higher quality of teaching and research. It is a premier institution and is known for its qualitative teaching, research, and other co-curricular and extracurricular activities. The center is a hub of research and learning for law students. To promote students' activities at the center, a number of committees have been constituted, like Moot Court Committee, Debate and Seminar Committee, Journal Committee, Legal Aid Committee, Placement Committee, Alumni Committee. Center heads the privilege of being headed by the top law scholars of India, such as Professor Upendra Bakshi, Padam Shri awardee, a well-known jurist and former Vice Chancellor of University of Delhi, Professor Tahir Mahmood, who subsequently became a chairperson, Minority Commission, Professor A.K. Kaur, who was elevated as Vice Chancellor, NLU Jodhpur and NLU Ranchi, Professor Gurdeep Singh Bahari, who became Vice Chancellor, NLU Lucknow, Professor B.T. Kaul, served as a chairperson, Delhi Judicial Academy. Professor Poonam Saxena is presently Vice Chancellor, NLU Jodhpur. Law Center 2 has the privilege of having alumni from all walks of life. As Law Center 2 is celebrating 50 years of teaching, the center has grown exponentially in footprint, academic offerings, and students' body. Today, number of alumni of Center 2 are contributing in the future of India. The alumni included senior bureaucrats, police officers, revenue officers, doctors, engineers, chartered accountants, company secretaries, politicians, etc. Some of its alumni include His Excellency, Honorable Governor of Arunachal Pradesh, Brigadier B.D. Mishraji, Sri K.J. Alphonse, Member Rajya Sabha, ex-Minister of State for Tourism, Justice B.D. Ahmed, Justice Kailash Gambhir, Justice S.N. Dhingra, Justice Rajiv Sakdar, Justice V.K. Rao, Mr. M. Damodaran, Mr. G.D. Geha, Professor Manoj Kumar Sinha, Director, Indian Law Institute, New Delhi. Among many more legal luminaries, Law Center 2 has been publishing 2 journals named National Capital Law Journal and Delhi Journal of Contemporary Law, publishing quality research papers in the field of law and contemporary issues. I feel proud to be currently associated with Law Center 2. My dear students, colleagues, non-teaching staff, everyone associated with Law Center 2, we have crossed the zigzag path of thousands turmoil and tendencies, and it is a time to celebrate, to introspect and consolidate, and plan for Law Center 2 future. On 8th of March, we celebrated International Women's Day. So in continuance of recognizing and appreciating the tremendous efforts women put in everyone's life, it is time to address their rights as human rights, especially during or after COVID pandemic. Today, we have our distinguished guest speaker, Professor Tariq Ji, Professor of Law, Aligarh Muslim University, uh, Aligarh, Professor Dr. Mohammad Tariq has been a keen researcher and seasoned teacher with teaching experience of more than 20 years in subjects such as jurisprudence, labor law, constitutional law, human rights, and gender justice. Professor Mohammad Tariq has received three awards, namely EMP's National Award for Excellence in Education 2021 for exemplary work in the field of education, Shiksha Samvad Award, and Utthan Award.
So lost his connection.
I think sir lost his connection.
Ajay sir,
He's
you can
connecting.
unmute the student, the mic of the student. They are creating the problem.
PIC sir was disconnected. Now he is connecting.
Okay. Sir is connected? Not yet.
I sincerely regret for this net problem. So again, you know that I was briefing about our esteemed guest. Professor Tariq has successfully completed University Grant Commission sponsored project and also played the role of observer in the examinations conducted by various agencies like National Testing Agency, CBSC, and various universities. He has also participated in discussions, comments, debates on various TV channels and radio programs, and acted as judge or jury member in the various competitions, programs at the national as well as international level. He is also associated with Union Public Service Commission and other state public service commission like Rajasthan, Bihar, Jharkhand, Kerala, etc. in different capacities. He's a prolific writer, academicians to the core, prodigious administrator and research scholar in his own right. I extend my warm welcome to you, sir. It's indeed a proud moment for us to have you with us today. So I again and again welcome you at the Law Center to University of Delhi. Thank you, sir. Now over to Kalpanaji. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, sir, for this welcome address. And without wasting time, I would like to request today's eminent speaker. Sir, please enlighten us with your words, sir. Thank you so very much.
A very good afternoon to all of you. Are you hearing me? Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Okay. Respected Professor Mahavir Singh ji, Professor in charge Law Center 2, University of Delhi, Program Director Professor Anupam Jha Sahab, Program Coordinator Dr. Kamaljit Kaur ji, and Program Coordinator Dr. Kalpana Sharma. She is in touch with me from the last month, and I realize how much sincerity and commitment she has towards the center. And very good afternoon to all August gathering. Really, I'm very grateful to Law Center 2, Delhi, University of Delhi, who gave me an opportunity to share with you on a very pertinent issue. And the organizing deserves for the appreciation to select a burning issue of the time, that is when women rights are not human rights, and an impact of COVID-19 on women human rights. Really, I'm very thankful to this center and feel very happy and confident that I have become a part of the Golden Jubilee celebration. Okay, now come to the point that my reviewers, you know that the rights are those claims and demands of an individual or group of individuals to good life which are accepted by the community or society as essential for the common good and recognized by the state. In other words, you can say the rights are also those essential factors without which human life cannot sustain. And these human rights, as the term is most commonly used, are basic entitlements bestowed upon each and every human being by virtue of birth. The underlying idea of such rights is to ensure that all men, women, and children are treated with respect and dignity. As human beings, it is our birthright that all of us should be given equal treatment and should not be discriminated on any account due to differences of religion, caste, class, color, gender, or anything else, either by the state or the community, or for that matter, the family. This is because each person is special with their own individual talents and abilities, and none are inferior or superior to each other. Now, I will focus on the particularly human rights of women, because the theme is the women's human right, and particularly in the era of the COVID-19 and in the period of the COVID-19, how much they have been affected by this pandemic. There's a very popular slogan that's women's rights are human rights. But the theme is women's rights are not human rights. Generally, the popular theory, the famous was used by the women's rights movement at the 1993 World Conference. What was the slogan? That women's rights are human rights. And I personally just believe that this center, what the authorities, including in charge and the senior professors and the director coordinators, they have make a very good issue. They make a very sensitive issue. And now this famous slogan is the women's rights are human rights. The theme saying human rights are not human rights in this pandemic era. So just I congratulate to the organizing team to make it such a sensitive issue to also sensitize the people on a particular issue that is near the time. Now, you know that the women's rights are human rights. So this famous slogan was used by the women's rights movement at the 1993 World Conference on Human Rights in Vienna. The notion may seem self-evident as the international system for the promotion and the protection of human rights that was installed under the auspices of the United Nations, builds on the idea of equality, dignity, and rights for men and women. My dear viewers, you know that in Vienna in 1993 made it unequivocally clear to the participating states of the World Conference that much of what women experience every day, abuse in their lives, was largely kept outside the realm of mainstream international human rights. Despite the fact that it was common knowledge that women were regularly subjected to battery, torture, humiliation, sexual harassment, exploitation, forced marriages, even the pregnancy issue also that clearly violate internationally recognized human rights norms. Now another issue is that are women's rights a human right? This is the part of the main theme, that whether the women's rights are human right. The concept of human rights, like all vibrant visions, is not a static or the property. Rather, it's being expanded, received of the needs and hopes in the future. In this spirit, feminists redefine human rights abuses to include the degradation and violation of women. The specific experiences of women must be added to traditional approaches to human rights. And in order to make women more visible and to transform the concept and practice of human rights in our culture, so that it takes better account of women's lives. It has been rightly pointed out by Sir Harsh Lesherport, that the eminent lawyer of international law, that since human rights are not created by any legislation, they bear a resemblance to the natural rights, and each civilized state must recognize and respect them, what Lesherport has said. Again, I would like to repeat it. What Lesherport said, that since human rights are not created by any legislation, he is talking about the evolution of these human rights. They bear a resemblance to the natural rights, and each civilized state must recognize and respect them. And now gender justice is a part of human rights, and gender justice is the vision of the disparities among genders that turn out in various spheres of life. It entails actively measures by influential institutions such as law and socio-economic policies to check the prejudice, which is responsible for vulnerability of women. It is duly stated by a renowned author that the women in the world have struggled for their rights. Various hurdles have to find out to receive the rights equivalent to their counterpart, and at the same time, delineate the rights especially designed for them. At the same time, on the other hand, and not forfeiting their interests and power as women. That is why it is, you can say that it is duly said by Gerald Scott in her classic study of women in the French Revolution, that the rights of man had only paradoxes. The rights of man had only paradoxes to offer to women. What she has said, very true. So the notion about women worldwide show that women were perceived as a subordinate being. Their rights are being violated. They are just taken away either by the state or the society or the family. They are being abridged, even by the family members, even by the society, even at some point of time, you can see this is violated by the state also. But in the contemporary era, contemporary era, in the modern era, in the present scenario, it is not possible just to discriminate on the basis of sex because we have a very good constitution. So even you can say this is the best constitution of the world. So that was the position, that's a position that the human rights of Indian women have. Now come to the thrust or the thrust area of the theme, that's the impact of COVID-19 on human rights of Indian women. This COVID-19 life around the world. The pandemic has exposed sharp economic and social inequalities and has widened the already existing gap with the most vulnerable in society, including unequal impacts affecting women and girls by virtue of their gender. And this COVID-19 is not only a challenge for global health system, but also a test of our human spirit. And recovery must lead to more equal world that is more resilient to future crises. Across every sphere, from health to the economy, security to social protection, the impacts of COVID-19 are exacerbated for women and girls simply by virtue of their sex. It is crucial that all national responses place women and girls, their inclusion, representation, rights, social and economic outcomes, and equality and protection at their center if they are to have the necessary impacts. This is not just about rectifying long-standing inequalities, but also about building a more just and resilient world. So my view, dear viewers, students, and the senior and the my dear faculty and dear faculty members, is in the interest of not only women and girls, but also boys and men. Women will be the hardest hit by this pandemic, but they will also be backbone of recovery in communities. Remember, the COVID-19 pandemic has created a profound shock worldwide. Women face compounding burdens. They are overrepresented working in health system, continue to do the majority of unpaid care work in household, face high risk of economic insecurity, both in present and future also, and face increased risk of violence, exploitation, abuse, or harassment during times of crisis and quarantine particularly. The pandemic has had and will continue to have a major impact on the health and well-being of many vulnerable groups. And women are among those most heavily affected. The COVID-19 pandemic is deepening pre-existing inequalities, exposing vulnerabilities in social, political, and economic systems, which are in turn amplifying the impacts of the pandemic. Across every sphere, from health to the economy, the impact of COVID-19 are exacerbated for women's rights, women, particularly girls. The second wave of COVID-19 in India, particularly in India, brought unprecedented losses. Our university was also was suffered by this pandemic, particularly the Delta virus. Many faculty members have just left the world. So this second wave of COVID-19 in India brought, you can say, the unprecedented problems in the losses. The poorest and the most marginalized, including women and girls, face more risk without the means to absorb the economic shocks and mitigate the health crisis. They are caring for their families, sustaining livelihoods, and leading efforts to fight the pandemic amidst the threat of new variant. Some are saying that the new variant is coming in the month of June or July. Some say, no, it will not come. So these are the affected section of the society, that's a few women particularly. Now come to the impact of the pandemic on the particular aspect of the life of women, particularly female education. There is now a growing concern that COVID-19 might amplify these barriers and increase the gender gap in education. Might amplify these barriers and increase the gender gap in education. And girls are at more risk than boys of being discriminated against in terms of access to technology, household chores, and child marriage. Before COVID-19, India had 30 million out of school children, out of which 40% were adolescent girls. Now it is projected that post-COVID-19, close to 10 million secondary school girls might drop out, and a large number of these can be from India. So it's a very alarming situation. The potential impacts of COVID-19 on girls' education are numerous. The most direct impact has been through the shutting down of schools to curb the spread of the virus. Since then, distance learning facilities like the online platform, TV broadcasting, radio, and the WhatsApp, and these other platforms, social media also, etc., have been adopted to facilitate children's learning during school culture or during this school closures. However, it has failed to reach all the students due to the massive digital disparity across location and gender. In India, the poorest girls and those living in rural areas have much less access to technology than boys. There exists a 50% gender gap in mobile internet users in India, where 21% of women and 42% of men are they are using mobile internet. Moreover, an assessment on issues faced by adolescents during COVID-19 found that more boys than girls had access to digital infrastructure such as mobile phones, internet services, radio, and media. With such low access to technology, digital schooling will further disengage girls from education and widen the educational inequalities among learners. That's a very, very challenging task. The burden of household responsibilities keeps girls away from education. That's another issue. The burden of household responsibilities keeps girls away from education and limits their learning opportunities. Household chores is one of the most commonly cited reasons by women for discontinuing their education. Among the percentage of ever enrolled women, that's called it from 33 years to 35 years, currently not attending education. And 30.2% reported engagement in domestic activities, 30.2%. In domestic activities, they are engaged in domestic activities. There are reasons for discontinuing education. 30.2% women, they are engaged in domestic activities. That's why they are not taking education. Or that is a factor. That's a reason of discontinuing education. So it should be addressed not only by the state but the society as well. And both lack of access to schools and economic hardship due to COVID-19 puts girls at a higher risk of gender-based violence and forced child marriage. Early marriage robs girls of their childhood and pulls them out of the education system. So child marriages and early marriages is very harmful in the development of women's education. Economically overburdened families consider it as an opportunity to free themselves from the liability of raising a girl child. That is why they are indulged in child marriages. India already bears the world's largest share of child brides, equaling almost 23 million, and is predicted to rise due to the pandemic. Childline India has reported a 17% increase in distress calls related to early marriage of girls in this pandemic era. That's a direct, indirect impact of the COVID-19 on women and girls. According to a policy brief issued by the Right to Education Forum in January 2021, 10 million girls in India could drop out of secondary school due to COVID-19, exclusively girls. The sudden shift from learning to virtual learning was like a lock for students from marginalized communities, particularly girls, and due to the existing digital divide among students. However, some recent studies show that there existed a gender-based digital divide in education that made the situation worse for female students. Many of the girls who were studying before the COVID-19 pandemic didn't return to classes again, as their families did not want to invest their saving in their education. That's the impact of COVID-19 on women. Another issue is that women and girls are at more risk of contracting COVID-19. Women are at the forefront of the battle against the pandemic, as they make up almost 70% of the healthcare workforce, exposing them to greater risk of infection while they are underrepresented in leadership and the decision-making processes in the healthcare sector. So they are at more risk. However, some women and girls may be at higher risk because they are poorer and lack information and resources, or because they are at the front line as caregivers and workers in the health and services sectors. Particularly in India, women make up a significant proportion of all healthcare workers and more than 80% of nurses and midwives. Yet, when it comes to decision-making roles in the health sector, they are largely absent and they get paid much less than their male counterparts. That's not a good issue at all. That's not a good facts. We would not like to just to say that it's a very good sign when both male and female are working, that the salary has to be, or the remuneration or the perks have to be the same. Otherwise, it's clear violation of the right to equality. Since women in India, that spend more hours caring for children, the elderly and sick family members and masks and other personal protective equipment are often designed. There's a very just a raising. You can raise this issue that generally masks and other personal protective equipment are often designed and sized for men. Generally, women may be at risk of more exposure to the virus. That's the common problem. Even the commercial establishment, they are involved in just to discriminate, and you can say that the commercial discrimination. That's they are making different personal protective equipment, masks. They are keeping the size of the man only, not the women. That's a problem. So they are more exposed. The women may be at the risk of more exposure to the virus. Right now, there is also a concern that less women are getting vaccinated than men in India. That's another problem. Because of the fact that women have less access to internet or smartphones, they may not be able to register for vaccination. Due to the prevailing patriarchal norms, women may find it difficult to go to the vaccination centers alone. And there may be preference for male family members to get vaccinated first. Unvaccinated women are at a high risk of contracting the disease, especially in the wake of the new variants. Now, another impact of the COVID-19 on that is on reproductive health. During the pandemic, women's health worsened across several areas, from nutrition to reproductive services. Women's health, especially their sexual and reproductive health, is often complicated by societal taboos and women's clear status in some communities. Restrictive social norms, gender stereotypes, home quarantine, and diversion of resources to respond to the COVID-19 pandemic can limit women's ability to access health services, as well as make them more susceptible to health risk. Global lockdowns have led to several women being stuck at home with their perpetrators, and incidents and reports of violence against women has been a rise globally. It's not the issue of India. Globally, the ratio and the number of the cases have increased against the women. And multiple responsibilities has also put severe strain on their mental health. And during this pandemic, many women and their couples had difficulty seeing doctors and other healthcare providers for their sexual and reproductive health. A timely report by Mary Stopes International revealed that between January and June 2020, 1.3 million women in India lost access to abortion and contraceptives. The international non-government organization also reported that that's 920,000 fewer safe abortion and post-abortion care services were delivered. Antenatal services, delivery services, and medication for tuberculosis and other illness were impacted by the lockdown. While the public sector continued to provide these services in limited capacity during the waves, the private healthcare sector stopped providing services in most states. That is a problem. So, my dear organizers, you have chosen a very good topic. And another impact of the COVID-19 on the mental health of women. Along with the high mortality rates, sorry. Permit me to say this. Another impact on mental health of women that along with the high mortality rate, this pandemic has severe physical, emotional, and psychological ramifications. Additionally, growing incidents of anxiety, pain, insomnia, and distress have been reported widely across nations. Despite the spike in these cases, the intermediate psychological impacts of COVID-19 on mental health have not received adequate attention. Similarly, studies in India have been more conceptual in nature, and the paucity of empirical evidence on assessing the psychological effects and response to COVID-19 has been observed. The devastating fact is that women are the worst sufferers of mental health issues developed as byproduct of COVID-19. Another impact of COVID-19 on women employment. So this is also an alarming situation. And emerging evidence on the impact of COVID-19 suggests that the women's economic and productive lives have been affected disproportionately and differently from men. Across the globe, women earn less, save less, hold less secure jobs, and are more likely to be employed in the informal sector. In developing economies, 70% of women work in the informal sector with few protections. Again, this measure offer paid sick leave and limited access to social protection. In India, the nationwide lockdown has left millions of migrant women unemployed and starved for food, placing a huge financial burden on these women who contribute substantially to their household income. On an average, women spend 2 times as many hours as men doing unpaid caregiving work as well as domestic work. They have their own work hours. As a male, I have a limited hours for the service, but they are doing a job, suppose. They have a work in the office. After that, when they reach to their home, now work is on and on and on. So that's called the domestic work. And with health facilities being overburdened and non-COVID-19 related health and social services being scaled down, women will be primary unpaid caregivers to ailing family members, including children and old people also. Women's greater involvement in the unpaid care economy could also impact their already low workforce participation rate. In India, women made up just 24% of the workforce before the pandemic. They accounted for 28% of all job losses as the pandemic took hold. Women, on average, lost over 2/3 of their incomes during the lockdown. And they were more likely than men to report it was present. The 2021 Opportunity Index report by Jubilee highlights that more than 40% of women have potentially been affected by the unnatural development of dual workload. In a report released by the World Bank in June 2020, female labor force participation in India fell to 20.3% in 2020 from 30% in 1990. Everything's okay? Are you hearing me?
Sir.
Am I audible?
Yes, yes, definitely, sir. Please carry.
Because the connection is showing my connection is weak. So that's why I'm asking. Okay. Thank you very much. There is always pros and cons, and the merit of this system is that I'm here at a legal, and rest of the people are just across the country. So really a very good opportunity we have. That's a merit of this system. That's online. Anyway, so what I was discussing that 2021 Opportunity Index report by LinkedIn highlight that the more than 40% women have reportedly been affected, more than 40%, by the unnatural development of dual workforce. In a report released by the World Bank in June 2020, female labor force participation in India fell to 20.3% in 2020 from 30% in 1990. Estimates became grimmer after the onset of the pandemic. It was found that women were 7 times more likely to lose employment due to lockdown and 11 times more likely than men not to return to work after the subsistence of the crisis. 11 times more likely than men not to return to their original work or to the previous work after the subsistence of the crisis and the restoration of assumed normalcy. So this section of the society, this women, is highly affected by this COVID-19. Most of these women who were not returned back to their job, the previous job, reportedly gave up on their own with the pandemic. So yet a great statistic by the CMI report of November 2020 showed that labor force contracting among urban women increased to a sweeping 27.2% as compared to 2.8% for urban men. But that is the comparative study shows 27.2% that women and 2.8% only men, urban men. For urban men, total employment in India also reduced by 22.8%. No problem. But it is higher in women. So the situation is no better for the more skilled female workforce. In the last year, the condition of the country's female workforce has worsened. This is due to the pandemic. India has decimated by no less than 20 places in 2021, and gender gap index has been accorded the rank of 140 out of 156 countries, specifically based on the level of its women's economic participation and political empowerment. It is not as if the progress was admirable in pre-pandemic times. As per World Economic Forum, efforts to decrease economic parity could take 257 years then. That's a very, I can say, debatable issue. And this was when the pandemic had not already exacerbated the erstwhile situation. Numbers also highlight the significant impact of the pandemic-induced lockdown on work movement. With the share of women in professional, technical, and managerial roles at a rampant decline. Wage inequality and the burden of unpaid cares has pushed more women out of employment and into poverty. Women earn income in India was just 1/5 that of men even before the pandemic. Globally, and particularly in India, more women have lost jobs during COVID-19. A report by the Center for Sustainable Employment at Azim G. Premji University in India shows that during the first lockdown in 2020, only 7% of men lost their job, compared to 47% of women who lost their jobs and did not return to work by the end of the year. That is the impact of the COVID-19 on women's employment. In the informal sectors, women fared even worse. Last year, that's the year 2021, between March and April 2021, rural Indian women in informal jobs accounted for 80% of job losses. This is all our data. either by the different NGOs or the different universities or the other forums also. So Indian women also spend more time doing unpaid care work at home than men. On average, they spend 9.8 times more time than men on unpaid domestic chores and 4.5 hours a day caring for children, elders, and the sick. So they are more busy. They are doing the more hours of their life, not only to the services or the professional life, but the family life also. During the pandemic, their share of unpaid care work grew by nearly 30%. And what about the rural women? Rural women form nearly 80% of job losses in the second wave. And job losses amongst men were only a fraction of total losses. Experienced last year amounting to 1.6 million between March and something of April 2021 versus 100 million between March to April 2020. On the other hand, 15 million women lost their jobs between March to April 2020, with an additional 5.6 million between March to April 2021. All of women's job losses were in rural areas. So there is a very big crisis in the rural areas, particularly in the field of the employment, in the area of the employment, and they are the worst sufferer. And the impact of the COVID-19 is very much on the women, particularly those who are living in the rural areas. Now, another impact of the COVID-19 is on the digital gap. Without digital or the IT revolution, we cannot complete our talk. Another emerging dimensions regarding social equality of women is digital equality, which has been recently recognized during this COVID-19 pandemic. Within the whole region of Asia Pacific, India has the widest gender gap in terms of internet usage. This worsening gender gap is rightly illuminated by the UN, which says gender digital divide in connectivity, devices, and use, skills, and jobs is real. It's an inequity and exclusion gap. I'm not talking about Dr. Kamaljit Kaur. She is an assistant professor and living in Delhi. I'm talking about the women who are living in the rural areas. Even they are not literate, they cannot access the internet sphere. These are the larger section of the society. It's considered to be merged out of a triple disadvantage for our female folk. The rural-urban digital gap is being one of it. In rural areas, women are less likely to have their own cell phones. Moreover, intra-household discrimination obstructs women from accessing digital devices efficiently within their own domestic spheres.